On episode 653 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we discuss strategies for losing those last 10 to 15 pounds when you're over 40. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/653. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness, the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. Each week, we dive deep into health and fitness topics that affect those of us over 40. I'm Coach Allen. I'm an NASM certified personal trainer with specializations in corrective exercise, behavior change, performance enhancement, and fitness nutrition. A Precision Nutrition Level 1 coach, a FAI certified functional age-linked specialist, and an OTA Level 2 online trainer. Each week, I'm joined by our co-host, Coach Rachel. She is an NASM certified personal trainer and a RRCA Level 1 run coach. Let us be your coaches as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Hey, Raz, how are you?
Good, Ellen. How are you today?
I'm doing well. We've gotten some good rain over the last week, every night. Only down part is we had a new roof put on Lula's about, I'm going to say 2.5 years ago. So the first year we spent doing the whole thing. And then we got through a busy season and we rolled up on a slower season and we had the roof replaced. And so here I guess we're now. And yeah, so that's going to put us at 2 years later. And it leaks.
Oh no!
And so we know that there's some problems with the gutters. So, well, we had the guy come in to look at the roof, and it still leaks. And now the sad part is like, okay, we've got guests staying in the rooms. Now we've got it now to where it's only leaking in one room, but it's like you got a guest in there, and all of a sudden they're like, it's raining on our bed. And we got to move them to another room, and so some of that stuff's been going on. And then, but yeah, the other side is thunderstorms, and our dogs hate thunderstorms.
Oh no!
I mean, like scared thunderstorms. Like when our youngest Lev, the thunder goes up, he is like terrified. He just does. He doesn't want to be outside at all right now. And every night that's been going on. So the last couple of nights we've been opening our door so they can come in our room, and then Buster, the bigger dog, he gets on the bed. And he just has this capacity to scooch. So every inch I give, he scooches to fill that space. He weighs probably about 65 pounds. And so it's not something you just, brush away. No. And so I'll wake up in the morning with 6 inches available for my legs, and my back hurts. It's the only time I've woken up. I don't usually wake up in the morning in pain, but when I've got that dog in my bed, because I'm in this awkward position because obviously my legs were over there at one time, and then I shifted position, and he's still keeping my legs there. So that's my day. Is I love that it's raining because that's where our island gets the water from.
For sure.
We've redone our water catchment. So when we get a good rain, I know we're secure on having our own water, even if the city wasn't to pump. So all that's great. But yeah, the downsides are we've got some leaks, and it's great having the dogs in the bed if they would just sleep in one spot. And
oh my gosh. That's entertaining, isn't it?
All right. How are things up there?
Good. Like you, we've been getting our fair share of rain, which is wonderful. Our garden is doing so well this season, which is great. So yeah, it's just been nice.
Beyond flowers, are you growing? I know your daughter got into all the different herbs.
She did. Yeah.
So are you still keeping that up, or
not nearly? No, okay. We've got some tomatoes, peppers. I think she did leave some celery, so I'm kind of anxious to see how that works. But yeah, everything is very happy. We're getting tomatoes left and right. So it's been a delicious summer so far.
Well, good. I'm glad. Yeah. And the nutrition from that food is 1,000-fold better
Alan, we took some of our tomatoes and sliced them up next to a store-bought tomato and did kind of a blind study on one evening's dinner. And I just could not believe, I was literally shocked at how much more flavorful our tomatoes were than the ones that I would have normally bought at a store, which I would not have even noticed before. But to have that side-by-side comparison night and day, it was amazing.
Now, to be fair, your tomato would not travel very well to California.
No, it wouldn't. Nope. But it is so nice just to go out in the back and pick a tomato for dinner that evening and just enjoy it. It's wonderful.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. All right. Are you ready to help folks lose that last 10 to 15 pounds?
Sure.
Hello, and welcome to episode 653. Today, we're going to be talking about losing that last 10 to 15 pounds. But even if you have more to lose, I think you're going to get something out of this if you've ever found yourself struggling with a plateau. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about here will work for a plateau, even though you hear me talking quite frequently about the last 10 to 15 pounds, because that's when we really, most of us will hit a level plateau that's really hard to break. So some of the strategies and tactics we're going to talk about today are useful for you, even if you have more to lose. So stick around if you do. Okay. Now, the scenario works like this. You've been working hard. You've lost some weight. You're feeling pretty good, but you're kind of stuck. So the belly isn't as flat as you really wanted it to be. Your scale and measurements aren't changing the way that they were. And you are stuck and maybe a little confused because you're doing the same thing that was working before. It's just not working now. And that can be kind of frustrating. So let's talk about some things that are going on right now in our body that could be causing this to happen. And when you understand those, then I think you'll understand maybe how some of these strategies and tactics can kind of push you past this. Okay, the first thing to understand is that our body is wired to survive. So if there's famines, if there's all this other stuff going on, our body is in a position to try to keep us alive. So if we're going through the winter, there's not going to be as many vegetables. We can get our energy from ketones. If we're going through a famine, our body can survive on the body fat it has and preserve that body fat to keep us alive, so we have the likelihood of surviving this famine. So that's one changing thing that's happening is our body is trying to react to the information around us. And we'll talk about that in more detail below. Now, one basis that happens really causes a lot of the plateaus and a lot of this stabilization is called set point, the body weight set point. And I went into good detail with this with Jonathan Baylor way back when for his book Set Point and the Set Point Diet. I think it was called the Set Point Diet, but that was episode 363. So it's been a long time since we've talked about set point. So hear me out today and then, go on over and listen to that episode if you really want to understand set point a little bit better. But anyway, our body loves to stay within set ranges. This makes it a little easier for us to manage it. So the normal standard stuff that's operating in our body can just sort of make some assumptions and run. So it's an efficiency thing, but we stay in a particular range. Like you probably know your body temperature stays in a general range unless you have a fever, something's going on, you're sick. But when you're healthy, your body temperature tends to stay in a particular range. Your blood pH, very important to stay in a particular range. And it does all the things necessary, the body does, to make sure that happens. Our blood sugar tends to stay in a particular range. And it's only when we're sick that range fluctuates dramatically. So as long as we're healthy, our body wants to stay in given ranges. And that's kind of where set point comes in for body weight. Our body doesn't want to lose a whole bunch of weight really quickly because, again, if we go into a famine, it may not have the resources it needs to make it to the other side. Now, why would it have more fat mass than we need to survive, but think that maybe we don't? Well, here's one thing. If we don't have the muscle mass to do what we need to do, we won't be burning enough calories. So we're losing muscle mass, which we do through sarcopenia. We basically lose about 1% of muscle mass each year. And then after the age of 65, that accelerates. So as we lose muscle mass, our body is now at rest burning fewer calories. So the calorie count that worked for you 2 years ago, even 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it might not be what you need to have today because your body is burning fewer calories, even at the same weight, but you have less muscle mass. Okay, so we got to think about that. Is that muscle mass burns more calories than fat? And so again, we'll talk about this later, how that impacts strategy. But just realize that sometimes it's harder because our body's just naturally burning less calories. This episode is sponsored by AquaTrue. I've had the pleasure of having one of the AquaTrue Carafe countertop reverse osmosis water purifiers for the past month, and I love it. You know, clean drinking water is a big deal for my wife and I and our dogs living in Panama. But did you know that the Environmental Working Group research shows that 3 out of 4 homes in America have harmful contaminants in its tap water? And now you have a way to fix that. AquaTrue purifiers use a 4-stage reverse osmosis purification process, and their countertop purifiers work with no installation or plumbing. It removes 15 times more contaminants than ordinary pitcher filters and are specifically designed to combat chemicals like PFAS, or forever chemicals, in your water supply. AquaTrue's proprietary purification technology is independently tested by the IAPMO to NSF and ANSI standards to remove over 80% of the most harmful contaminants, including chlorine, fluorine, arsenic, PFAS, nitrate, and many more. The filters are affordable and long-lasting. No changing filters every 2 to 3 months. AquaTrue filters last from 6 months to 2 years. Just one set of filters from their classic purifier makes the equivalent of 4,500 bottles of water. That's less than 3 cents a bottle. Plus, you'll save the environment from tons of plastic waste. That's a big deal when you live on an island like we do. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, you can receive 20% off AquaTrue purifiers. Go to aquatrue.com, that's AQUATRU.com, and enter the code 40plus at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use the promo code 40PLUS. The way I want you to think about this model is thinking about it in terms of information. So there's basically here 5 pieces of information that drives how our body functions with regards to health and fitness. Okay, the first one is nutrition. Okay, so if we're not eating enough, or the quality of the food is not good enough, we're not getting the nutrition that our body needs, our body sees this as scarcity. So scarcity happens when we go into a famine. Scarcity happens when we go into the winter. Our bodies have been developed to be able to make it through these famines, to make it through the winter. And it does that, yes, by burning fat mass, but because it doesn't want to go through that fat mass too fast, it taps that down when it feels that we are. So if we're not getting the nutrition, our body will begin to tap down on fat burning and shut down other systems because we need to maintain that fat to make sure that we make it through the whole famine, through the whole winter. So if you're not eating enough or the quality of your food's not good enough, that may be part of the reason why you're seeing this set point. The next one is movement. Now, the human body was designed to move. We were designed to walk. We were designed to run. We were designed to hunt, to gather, to carry stuff, to squat, to dig, all of that. And if we're just sitting around in our cave, our body is going to start to wonder, what's going on here? And obviously, I don't need this muscle mass. So yeah, get rid of it. And I don't need to burn a bunch of calories. So I can just sit here and be safe and live. And so we want to make sure our body feels safe So we're moving regularly. That helps keep our muscle mass up. That helps keep us our body doing all the processes it's supposed to do. And that could be a part of the problem. If your movement has gone down, if the types of movement you were doing has gone down, that could be impacting your weight loss. Okay, the other one is stress. Okay. If you're not managing your stress properly and you're in a state of chronic stress, your cortisol levels are going to be high. Cortisol, as a catabolic hormone, it is actually going to break down muscle for energy. So if you're in a constant state of stress and your cortisol is high, you're going to have a hard time retaining muscle, and you're probably going to burn some for energy, which again just puts you at a disadvantage to losing weight. Plus, cortisol has this wonderful habit of helping you store fat in your abdomen where you don't want it. So if you're chronically stressed, that's a problem. Cortisol has a place. If you saw a bear or tiger and you needed to get away, you don't want these other processes happening right now. So it's just easy enough for your body to say, okay, shut everything down and run. When you get away from that threat, your body would then recover and your cortisol would come down. But when we're in the chronic state with everything that's going on in the world, everything that's going on in the office, bosses yelling at you, everything else in your life, if you're in a constant state of stress, your cortisol levels are high and you're really going to struggle to lose weight. The next one is sleep. Now, I put sleep here, but really, sleep might be the most important one, oddly enough. Food matters, movement matters, obviously, stress matters. But if you're not getting proper sleep, your hormones are not balanced properly. The sleep process puts us in this cycle. It's called the circadian cycle. And as we go through the circadian cycle, that's when our hormones are doing the resets. Our sex hormones, all the other hormones, most of the hormones in our body are set on this cycle. And if we're getting poor sleep, we're not allowing this to happen. We're not allowing the cleansing and everything else to happen. And as a result, we're probably going to have issues with weight loss. And not to mention, poor sleep often ends up causing binge eating and other things that you're eating more than you think you are because it's putting you in a bad state. And then the final one is your inner dialogue. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this one and think, oh, that's not a big deal. But I can promise you, if the inner voice you have is not a nice person, is not kind to you, you're not going to be motivated to do more for yourself. It's just a fact. So if you find yourself doing really, really bad self-talk, just realize that's not going to motivate you to do more. If anything, it's going to demotivate you and you're going to do less. You may feel like you're doing more, but that's only because it's that much harder. So if you can take that inner dialogue, build a better relationship with yourself, and then make this a journey of self-love, you're going to find this a lot easier. And you're going to have a cheerleader on your side that's inside your head 24/7 that's going to make you that much more effective. So we want to work on these 5 information sources as we go through. And so I want to talk about your current model lifestyle. Okay, so if we're doing these things, these are things that could actually be hurting us because we think they're good, but they're not. Okay, so the first one would be question of, you don't know what you don't know. So many of us think, okay, I know what healthy eating is. I know what good movement is. I know all these things. So I am doing all of these things right. Okay. The truth is, a lot of what you've been told is flat out wrong. Okay. A lot of the labels on our food. So we talk about food. A lot of the labels on our food will say healthy, and it's anything but. Okay. We've been told seed oils are better than saturated fat. False. Okay. We'll snack, and we know they're healthy snacks because they're nuts and cheese, but we're not really paying attention to the servings, and we're eating a lot more than we think we are because, well, they're healthy, right? I can eat as much of the healthy stuff as I want. And then probably the big one, and I see this a lot, is a lot of people will come into this thinking they're 80-20. So I'm having a conversation. I eat healthy. I do this. And I'm like, all the time. And they're like, oh no, 80-20. Like I eat 80% good and 20% not, yeah, some bad things, but not a lot of bad things and not all the time. Well, if they really took the time to break that down, you have to ask yourself, what is 80-20? And I'm telling you, most people will say, well, okay, I eat bad on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so you're eating good 5 days a week and eating bad 2 days a week, not 80-20. Sorry, that's not the math. We thought that was the math, but that's not really the math. So we tend to not know what we think we know when we're talking about food. So let's take that over to movement. Okay. What a lot of people don't know is the better you are at something, the better your body gets. So if you're out walking and you're always walking 30 minutes, your body is actually getting more endurance up to a point, and then it's more efficient at that point. So in effect, that 30 minutes is burning fewer calories to get that work done. Now, does your watch know that? No, your watch does not know that. So your watch is just saying, okay, you weigh this amount, you're moving this amount. And if you didn't update what the weight was for the new watch, it may think you're burning more calories than you are. Again, we don't know what we don't know. Okay. Or we're getting out and we're doing these workouts. They're great workouts, but we're not recovering from those workouts. And if we're not recovering from our workouts, then we're not getting the benefit of that workout. In fact, we might be increasing our cortisol level. And then the other side of what might be happening is we decide we're going to add more exercise. That's how we did this. We did the exercise, we got conditioned for that. We added more exercise. We got conditioned for that. We added more. That was the way we were losing weight. And now all of a sudden we're plateaued. Well, there's a point where you can't or shouldn't add any more, because exercise is also a stress. Now, it can be a very positive stress, but it is stress nonetheless. So if you're in a chronic stress state at work, at home, and all these other things, and you're just adding more exercise, you've put yourself into a deeper chronic stress. Your cortisol level's even higher. You're not going to be able to lose the weight. So let's talk about stress. A lot of people, I'll ask them, I'm like, what's your stress level? I think it's okay. I'll be like, okay, what kind of changes are going on in your life? And it's like, well, my mother died last year. We moved houses this spring. There's all these changes going on in your life. Every single one of those changes is a stress, and unprocessed, it's still sitting there. So sometimes we have these stresses in our lives, and we've just become so used to stress that we don't even give it a second thought. We don't even try to address it because we don't know it's there. The other thing is deadlines. So you may have a deadline at work, or maybe a series of deadlines, some things you've been working on, and it's constant go, go, go. The project never finishes. You're like up at night thinking about it. You're getting up early in the morning. You're thinking about it. You're go, go, go. You're not giving your body the time to recover and come down from that stress. You're leaving your cortisol up too long, and that can be creating problems for you. So being aware of who you are and where you are, what's going on in your life, will give you some of the tools to decide how you're going to manage stress. Okay, sleep is another one. I'll sleep when I die, kind of comments like that. I get 6 good hours. Well, maybe you're getting 6, maybe you need more. And so until you experiment around it, you're not going to see if sleep is truly enough. 6 hours is truly enough. And then a lot of times it's about time. So my wife and I were talking about her sleep. She woke up and she was still kind of fatigued. And I said, okay, well, I know you slept through the night for the most part, but why do you think you didn't get enough? And then she looked at the quality of her sleep, and the quality was the problem. It wasn't that she didn't sleep through the night. The quality of that sleep was not what it needed to be. Now, she was aware of this when she woke up in the morning, because she really felt like she wanted to go back to sleep. And that was just her body. And she was listening to her body, which is really good. And we happen to have some analytical tools like her watch to tell us about the quality. We found she only had 2 sleep cycles all night. In 6 hours, she probably should have had at least 4. So she wasn't getting good quality sleep. And, again, if she was trying to lose weight, that could impact her ability to do that. And then the inner dialogue. Sometimes we have this inner voice going all the time, but because it's always there, we kind of feel like we ignore it. But the reality is the information is still put into our body. So if you always, never, can't, don't, won't, those words, if you're saying those words to yourself, it's like you always go in and get 3 snacks. You always do this, but we're not listening because we're just living our lives. Not being aware of that inner voice could also be a part of what's holding you back. So a big part of our current modern lifestyle is that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. We think we do, but because we don't know what we don't know, we're not asking ourselves the right questions. Okay, the second way that this model life thing kind of works for us is that you're not doing what you think you're doing. Okay. And we talked a little bit about that when we were talking about the 80-20. But, again, 80-20 is not 80-20 if you're Friday through Saturday or Friday at night through Sunday night. It might not be 80-20. And even then, our 80 may have let some things slip in. We may be eating things that we're not aware of. If we're not logging our food occasionally, if we're not, I have my clients often, I'll have them take pictures of what they eat for a period of time. And they'll acknowledge, like, wow, I didn't realize how many times I started walking towards the cupboard to grab something. But now that I have to pull my camera out and take a picture of it, I'm actually now aware of what I'm doing. And I didn't realize I was doing it as much as I was. Okay. Other things that happen is sometimes we're drinking the calories. Okay. We might find this new product that's got electrolytes in it, right? It's wonderful. And then sorry, I was thinking about the Idiocracy movie. It's got electrolytes. But we're drinking calories because we want those electrolytes, or even not necessarily drinking calories, but drinking chemicals to get our electrolytes. And our body might not be responding very well to that. And as a result, we're not losing the weight. And then sometimes our portion sizes slip up. The layout of our plate changes a little bit. There's a little bit more starch and carbs in there than there is protein and fiber. And so as a result, we end up eating more and we don't quite realize we're doing it. And if it happens slowly over time, we don't even feel fuller. It's just a slow, we feel full, it's good. We feel full, it's good. And then we don't realize we're eating more and more food over time. Okay. So sometimes we don't know we're eating more. Sometimes we don't know we're drinking more calories. Okay. Another one is movement. Okay. Now, we may feel like we're doing the same workout. I go in and I work hard for 60 minutes. I'm like, okay, I always counted this as 700 calories. 60 minutes hard is 700 calories. Well, maybe I'm not actually working nearly as hard as I thought it was. Maybe the intensity is less, or I'm quitting a little earlier, at least from an intensity perspective. And therefore, I'm not actually getting as much work in as I may have been doing when I was really losing weight. The other thing is I might have bad data. I tell the story. I was going to the gym. I found this favorite elliptical. I named her Martha. I'd meet Martha every morning at 5:00. I was on Martha for an hour. It's wonderful. We had a great relationship. I came in one morning and someone was there, and the woman was working out on Martha. And I didn't want to wait. I said, okay, I'll just go over to this other elliptical and I'll do this. Now, every day I did that workout with Martha was 600 calories. 1 hour hard work, Martha, 600. I did one workout. I would push just as hard on this new elliptical, and it said 700 calories. I now had a new favorite elliptical. I broke up with Martha. Now, was I really burning 700 calories? Or was I even burning 600 on the last one? I don't know, but I was losing weight when I was burning 600 on Martha up to a point, and now on this one, 700, I'm not losing any more weight. So the data might not be as accurate as we think it is. So I might not be doing what I think I am. And then the other thing is I might be doing resistance training, but if I'm not doing it properly, I might not be adding muscle mass. I'm like, yeah, I train, 2 or 3 times a week, lifting weights. I'm getting, I should be building muscle. Not necessarily. If I'm not moving the way I'm supposed to, if I'm not pushing the muscle and not feeding the muscle and not resting the muscle, it's possible that I'm not adding any muscle mass at all. So again, I may not be doing exactly what I think I'm doing. Let's talk about stress. Now, even if it's just a change in schedule, it doesn't seem like it would be something that would increase stress. It can be. So our kids got out of school for the summer. We've got them around more. All these things are going on, more things to think about during the summer. That change in schedule could increase our stress. Okay. And so as we look at our schedule, look at how we're doing, are there things going on in our lives that we think are just fine? Maybe even we think they're good. Like we're all going to go to Disneyland. So, I'm planning to get my work done ahead of time. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive down to Disney World. All that sounds wonderful, but that's a lot, especially with the kids and the travel and the hotels and then the parks and then the coming back. All that change, all that time, we might be adding stress to our lives, even when we think this is what we want to do. So just understanding that even things that don't necessarily feel stressful can be stressful. And then the other thing that will often happen is we will stop doing something that was reducing our stress. So maybe we had a regular schedule and we were doing our meditation every morning before we went to work or right after we arrived at work or during the middle of the afternoon. And now that we're not as regular in the office because we're working more from home, maybe we're not doing that meditation as often. Maybe we're not doing the yoga class anymore. So maybe there were things you were doing that was reducing your stress that you're no longer doing. You haven't really acknowledged that gap that's missing. Okay, let's think about sleep. Well, during the summer in the north, the days get longer. As a result, sometimes we stay up a little later. So I know, like, I travel up to Calgary and it's crazy. Like, I'm 10 o'clock at night and it's still daylight. And I'm like, this is insane. But I found myself staying up till 10, 11 o'clock, even though not my normal bedtime was like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I ended up staying up later when I was in Calgary because of the longer days. So during the summer, you find yourself getting actually maybe less sleep. That could be impacting your journey. Something to think about. And then travel and sleep. It's always harder to fall asleep and sleep well in another bed. It's a place you're not familiar. There are different sounds, there's different this and that. And so if we're not doing the things that are necessary to make our sleep good when we're traveling, we just might not be getting the quality sleep that we were getting before when everything was working the way we wanted it to. And then the inner dialogue, oftentimes, we don't even realize that it's stepped up. It's gotten a little bit more negative. And if we're frustrated about this plateau, or if we're frustrated we just haven't gotten that last 10 to 15 pounds off, that negative self-talk might be kicking up a little bit. And again, if we haven't been paying attention to it, well, that guy might not be a very nice person right now. We might need to do some stuff to build that relationship. Okay, so here's some tips I have for how you can begin fixing this so you can move forward and lose the last 10 to 15 pounds. You're in a plateau. This is perfect. You want to do this. If you're towards the end and it seems to be leveling off and it's really, really hard, these are some things I think you're going to want to do. Okay, so the first one is that you're going to want to get some data. Okay, and how do you get data? Well, first, you start journaling and logging. So we're going to look at our movement. We're going to journal those workouts. We're going to look at our sleep and stress. We're going to do some journaling. We're going to look at our inner self-talk, and we're going to journal. And then we're going to log our food. Okay. If we're doing that, we're collecting data. And then with that data, we will be able to make better decisions. Just the two things I told you earlier. We may not know what we don't know, and we may not be doing what we think we're doing. Well, this data will help you understand which of those two, or not both, you're doing. Now, with all this data you're going to collect, and like I said, we've identified 5 key information points. You don't want to do all of these at once. Again, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. So what you want to do is pick 1 or maybe 2 things that you feel would most likely move the needle from you. If you've noticed, like maybe I know I'm eating more. Maybe I know I'm not sleeping as much. So starting to manage my bedtime, go to bed a little earlier, manage my food a little tighter, do that for a while, get that under your belt, and then consider another one. But without the journaling, you won't know which one of these to focus on first. Okay. And then you want to develop a plan. If I know it's my eating and it's my sleep that are the most likely things that are going to help me, then I can just do these gentle nudges. I don't have to sit there and say, slap, cut 500 calories out because I realized I'm eating 2,500 instead of 2,000. Just say, okay, I'm going to cut 100 calories out. Again, I want to communicate to my body that's not a scarcity problem. It's a choice problem. And then if I increase the quality of my nutrition, those lower calories are not going to mean as much. And my body might begin releasing that body fat. The other thing to consider with your plan is maybe it's time for a sprint. And this is where you might say, okay, I am going to really bump up my movement, but I'm also on the contrast because I don't want to add too much stress to the system. I'm going to begin meditating twice a day. So you dedicate an extra little bit of time to get your exercise in, but you also dedicate time for that stress release. So that could be doing a yoga class, that could be doing meditation, it could be going for walks in the woods, it can be whatever it needs to be to help you lower your stress, but also increase your activity level. And that's going to help your body understand it's safe, it's capable. There's no reason for us to not lose this weight, and then it can. And then as you go, just like you would look at the gauges in your car, you're going to want to monitor how things are going, and you're going to want to make adjustments. So the essentials here are to understand what you're doing with your body, and it's reflected in your nutrition, your movement, your stress management, your sleep, and your inner dialogue. And if you're doing little things to make those better, and you're journaling and logging so you have evidence and data to back up that is what you're doing, not what you think you're doing, then I think you're going to be able to lose that last 10 to 15 pounds. Welcome back, Raz.
Hey, Alan, this was really helpful. And I really like how you lined it out with these 5 things that we need to journal, measure, and kind of analyze, because it could look different for everybody. We've got nutrition, movement, stress, sleep, and our own inner dialogue. And how we succeed or what we do in each of those categories can be different. But I do know that once I've hit plateaus in the past, and even as I've been through perimenopause and menopause, my instinct, my knee-jerk reaction is to double down on movement. You know me, if I can run 5K, I'll run 10, or if I can work out twice a week in my gym, I'll go 3 or 4 times. And it's just my knee-jerk instinct to go down, double down on my movement. But obviously that is not always the right thing to do.
Right. The point is it will be different for everybody. Okay.
Yes.
It's just
100%.
And yes, there are startling differences between males and females, but there can be startling differences between a woman who's 52 and one who's 50. And the one in 50 might be going through menopause, and the one who's 52 might just be in perimenopause. Still very different circumstances. You might be an executive where you work. You might be under a lot of stress with work, with things that are going on with your home, with your parents, with your kids, all these things going on in your life. You're in heavy, heavy stress. And if you just go at it and say, move more, eat less, magic formula. Well, what happens a lot of times is folks will have started it, and guess what? It works. If I cut back a little bit on my food, my weight starts to go down. I start walking a little bit more, my weight goes down. Yes, calories in, calories out is a thing, but there's a point, and there's a point where the extra work stops working in your benefit.
Yes.
And there's a point where the lowered calories works against you. And I know it's frustrating, and that's the thing is when we get frustrated, we want an answer, and we want a simple answer.
Simple, yes.
And I'm going to tell you, it is simple. It is simple once you sit down and really analyze what you're doing, and then you test little things, and those little things might actually be in the opposite direction. You might actually need to eat more
Yes.
to lose weight. Okay.
Yep. I'm going to put a big asterisk on that one.
Okay.
That is so important.
You might need to skip a workout and sleep in.
Yep.
So maybe you've worked yourself up and you're doing 2-a-days. Okay. And you've been doing 2-a-days and it's worked very well for you. So you get up in the morning, you go and do this hard cardio thing in the basement, and then you get home from work and you go down and you lift your weights. And then you live the rest of your life. And now you realize if you sit down and start analyzing, I'm not getting to bed until midnight. And then I'm waking up with the alarm at 4:30. And you're like, okay. And then you say, well, okay, I got this cool little app on my phone. And you start looking at it and you got 3 hours of sleep. And you're like, oh, well, I laid down for 5. And then you look at your actual log, you're like, no, actually, I only laid down for 4.5.
Right. Exactly.
I thought I laid down at 11, but I did 11:30, but I didn't. I was actually still moving around doing stuff. And that was catching up with my friends on Facebook and, making sure my schedule for tomorrow and realize, I set up for another half hour doing that.
Easily. Yes.
And then boom, you're like, you did sleep 3 hours. And but guess what your body's going to think? Okay, we've got to hunker down a little bit here. Something's going on here and we're not getting the hormones we need. And so even if you are like at a normal hormone level as a man or a woman, not dealing with menopause or as a low T guy, you're going to be a low T guy because you never gave your body the opportunity to go through the cycle and develop that testosterone, which happens with a good night's sleep.
For sure.
And heavy lifting. But, again, you've got to look at your schedule. You've got to look at your stuff. And that's where, a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. So people think, just double down, do more. And that's what I did. Okay. So I'm an executive. I'm working really hard and I'm traveling. When I'm home, I'm on that elliptical. I told you about Martha. Or was it Bertha? I think we get Martha.
Martha.
I'm like killing it. The reason I named the other one Bertha. But okay. So I'm killing it on Martha. And every time I'm all day. And then when I'm traveling, I'm looking for, because every hotel gym had an elliptical machine. And so I'm killing it on whatever machine they have for an hour every morning. And I'm pretty proud of myself because I think going that hard, and when I say that hard, I was at 90% max for an hour. Now, again, that's a bell curve, and I don't fit the bell curve. I didn't know that, but I just thought more was better, harder was better, And so, yes, I was 45 years old, and I could hold 177 to 180 beats per minute heart rate for an hour. And the elliptical told me I had burned 600 calories. Come in, I get on another one, and it's telling me it's 700 calories on that one. So I stopped with it. I went to the new one because it made me feel better.
Right.
But I was doing that, and I wasn't realizing that I was waking up in the morning, and my your cortisol hits at peak in the morning. That's what wakes you up. So you go to sleep with the the melatonin stuff, and then you go to sleep, and you got to sleep. Basically, what was it called? Like a leveler. So you're filling up with this sleep hormone that when it builds up, you want to go to sleep. You feel sleepy. Then the melatonin helps you fall into a deep sleep. You get into a sleep, and then you wake up. The cortisol starts just before sunrise to start to build up. And then, so you wake up, you're kind of in a high cortisol. That's why a lot of people will recommend that you go half an hour before you have any coffee. Let some of that cortisol burn off. So the water before coffee thing, that's where a lot of people got into that. Maybe add some, make it warm and add some lemon juice. Different people have done different strategies that worked for them. This is an experiment. But having so I'm at a high cortisol level. I have a cup of coffee, and then I go kill it on an elliptical for an hour. And then I go into my 16-hour stressful job. And I wake up the next morning and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had an hour-long commute. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. So as you look at all of that, you're like, okay, well, more was not going to fix me. And in fact, what fixed me was I started doing more reading, started paying more attention, and I realized, okay, I might be overtraining. I had no way to measure that other than I wasn't getting results doing what I was doing. And there's a quote. It's called the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That quote has been attributed to Albert Einstein, although afterwards in an interview, when they told him that, he said, I don't recall ever saying that, but it's true. So, okay, it might or might not be his quote, but he did come back later and say he agrees with it. So there you go. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. And so I realized I might need to do something different. I realized I needed to do some strength training. And I said, well, if I'm going to add strength training, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like doing strength training in the morning necessarily. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do strength training in the afternoon. That's going to be my primary activity that I have to do, my non-negotiable.
Cool.
And then in the morning, if I wake up early enough on my own, I will go for a walk. And so what I did was I realized the alarm was also a mistake because it was waking me up in the middle of a sleep cycle. Yes, I was measuring and journaling. Okay. Measuring and journaling. And so I saw my sleep cycles and I realized a lot of times my alarm went off at 5 o'clock. I was in deep sleep and I felt terrible.
Sure.
So I said, okay, if I go to bed early enough, I got these, and I saw I had regular sleep cycles. I got to the end. I said, okay, here I am. If I just let myself go, I'm probably going to wake up sometime. If I go to bed at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I'm probably going to wake up sometime between 4 and 7. And I have an hour commute and I need to be at work at 9.
Wow.
So there I go. As long as I get to bed before 9 o'clock, I do not need to set an alarm.
That's amazing.
Okay. And so I started, I did the experiment and I did set the alarm for 8 o'clock. But I found most mornings I'd wake up, I'd lay there for a minute and be thankful I was waking up. First gratitude of the day. And I'd say, okay, is this my last sleep cycle or not? And I would ask myself that question. And I'd give myself permission to go back to sleep unless it was after 7 o'clock. And then I started managing it. And then I realized there were mornings I'd wake up, at 5:30. And there were mornings I'd wake up at 4:30. And there were mornings I'd wake up at 6:30. And so depending on when I woke up, depending on how far I would walk.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I'd take off walking. And I found this thing. I could walk up this one road. And at that time in the morning, it's relatively quiet. So I'd walk up that road and I'd come up to a frontage road and it was half a mile. So I said, okay, I can walk up here and I can walk back. And then I said, okay, well, I can walk up because there was 2 interchanges. You know, when you're driving on a highway and it says the next 3 interchanges, well, we had that kind of thing. So there were 2 interchanges. I could see both of the overpasses from this almost like I was almost in the middle when I came up on this frontage road. And I said, okay, so in both directions, I mean, I can see the interchange. So I know they're not that far. So I walked to one and walked back, and then I started walking over and across. And before I knew it, I could walk to it. That's half a mile. It was 3 miles around the whole square and then half a mile back. So it was a 4-mile walk. I could do that in an hour if I pushed myself. If I went a little slower, okay, I've got that. So again, if I'm waking up at 5 o'clock, I've got plenty of time to do that 4 miles. If I wake up at 5 o'clock, I've got plenty of time to get that done. If I wake up at 4 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I've got time to do it again, to do that square again. So now I'm at 7 miles. And so I didn't do the whole thing. Like I said, up and down, just the same way I added. It's like, just add a little bit. And then because this one where we came up on the frontage road, it did cross. So I could come over and cross and that would cut some stuff. But when I did the whole square twice and back, it was 7 miles.
Nice.
And those slower, easier walks in the morning and doing the resistance training in the afternoon when I got my gym bag all sorted out, which is a whole nother story. That was what I needed. That's what my body needed to feel like I was doing the right kind of movement for it. And I started losing the weight again.
That's perfect. It sounds like you had the right balance of sleep, which is super important, as well as the movement. And the movement wasn't so cortisol inducing, it was probably just as relaxing and meditating to burn it more so than create it.
No,
so,
I'm walking around frontage roads and frontage roads and highways. So this is not like nature walking or anything.
No, that's a little
there's
different.
No cars. There's not really any cars out there at this time of the morning. And along the opposite side was the large tree line. So there was some foliage and stuff. But the reality of it was generally a light walk. I could listen to music. I could listen to podcasts. Sometimes I listen to fiction books. And so it could become a part of my relaxation time. And it was happening at a time when, again, my cortisol was at its highest. And I was about to go into a stressful situation of work. So this was an opportunity for me to bring my cortisol down, take a nice shower, do some stretching. Stretching's important.
Yep.
and then get in my truck and drive to work. And so those subtle little changes were significant. And they were in juxtaposition with what I thought I needed to do to lose weight. So I didn't know what I didn't know.
Exactly.
And so when I started learning these things, that's what I learned was, okay, resistance training is better than cardio. Okay, well, I'm going to try that. Odd thing, because I thought if I put on more muscle, I'd weigh more. That could be true, but you can also lose fat along the way, which is what I did. Sure. So, there's that. And then there's just the other thing of just things slipping up on you and you don't know what you don't know. You're not doing what you think you're doing,
Right.
I thought I was sleeping okay, but then when I started actually measuring it and realizing I'm waking myself up in the middle of a sleep cycle, that's not good. When I was traveling and I was in all these different hotel rooms, it's like I would measure my sleep and realize, okay, the first night I get there, my sleep is not going to be very good. So try to make a point. I've tried to make a point of going to bed even earlier, which kept me away from the hotel bar. Okay. Just again, look for a shiny on something, everything, even good things have their own shiny liner. So, just be looking for the good things, but, that worked. And so if you're struggling with this, you may not know what you don't know. And so it's worth reaching out to find somebody to help you do that. If it's just, you think you're doing it right and you're on it, good. But if it's not working, then you got to start doing some journaling.
Yes.
You've got to start thinking about one or two different things that you think might help you. It's not always more.
Right.
Not always less. Yes. Okay. And then just develop a plan and start working toward it. If you try to do big things, it's often hard.
Right.
But there are some of us out there that are in perfect positions to do that. I think this is coming out in August. No, end of July. So today's July 30th. If you are a teacher, you still probably have a few weeks before you've got to start going in and doing that. So you might have a short period of time here where you can do a sprint. Okay. Because yes, sometimes more is the answer. Sometimes less is the answer.
Right.
Particularly if things have slid a little bit. So reinvesting some time and effort towards your exercise to get back on track, to get back in the gym, to get back on cycle, particularly if like you're a tires person, you need that consistency. This could be a great time for you to go start building that consistency in a full-on sprint to get your streak going. So when you get busy, you've got that pull, that inertia that's saying, keep going with the streak. Okay. So I strongly encourage you to get help if you need it.
Yes.
We're here for you. But otherwise, look, this is not rocket science, but it is science. It's your science. And I can't give you the answer. I can only give you strategies for how you can personally find the answer. It starts with data.
Yes.
It starts, then it goes to planning, and then it goes to doing.
Yep. Alan, we've talked in the past, if you can measure it, you can monitor it, which goes right back to the whole purpose of data journaling. Start writing things down now and then learn how to tweak it. And, obviously we're here if anybody needs help.
All right. Well, you have a great week.
Thanks, Alan. You too. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you would, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we discuss how to measure success in health and fitness. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.